The lobby of the grand auction hall shimmered with gold and velvet. Knox, wearing dusty work overalls, sat on the edge of an Italian sofa, trying to catch his breath after a long delivery shift. His little daughter, Luna, dozed against his arm. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. Bianca, dripping in diamonds and arrogance, pointed a manicured finger. "Security! Why is this trash sitting on my set? Remove him immediately." Before Knox could stand, a bodyguard shoved him violently. Knox hit the marble floor hard, instinctively shielding Luna. His sleeve rode up his arm, revealing a jagged, lightning-shaped scar and a cheap, frayed rainbow bracelet. Bianca looked down. Her Hermes bag crashed to the floor. Her heart stopped beating. Before we continue, let us know where you are watching from in the world in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. And if this story touches your heart, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Knox pulled himself back onto the edge of the sofa, dusting off his worn work trousers. He was not angry at the bodyguard. He was simply too tired for anger. At 35, Knox felt twice his age. 5 years ago, he had been a decorated soldier, a man who led units through fire and chaos. He had been strong. He had been respected. Now? He was just the invisible guy who delivered flowers to people who would never look him in the eye. He looked down at Luna, who was happily munching on a stale ham sandwich they had bought from a vending machine down the street. It was their dinner. The war had taken his wife, and the injury that left the jagged scar on his arm had taken his military career. But he had Luna. She was his entire world. The only reason he woke up at 4 in the morning to haul heavy crates across the city until his back screamed in protest. He adjusted his sleeve, self-consciously covering the scar. To him, it was a mark of failure, a reminder of the day he was discharged. He did not know that to someone else, it might look like heroism. 10 feet away, Bianca stood surrounded by a fortress of nervous assistants and burly security personnel. She was breathtakingly beautiful, but it was a sharp, dangerous kind of beauty, like a diamond that could cut glass. She checked her reflection in a compact mirror, ensuring not a single strand of hair was out of place. To the public, she was the heiress who had everything. She was the woman on the magazine covers, but inside, Bianca was still the terrified little girl locked in a dark, damp basement 15 years ago. Since the kidnapping that stole her childhood, she had built walls around her heart taller than the skyscrapers she owned. She hated dirt. She hated disorder. She hated anything that reminded her of the days when she was helpless and alone in the dark. She had spent a fortune searching for the boy who had saved her, the anonymous hero who had taken a knife for her. But she had never found him. So, she became hard. She became cruel. It was her armor against a world she did not trust. The contrast between them was painful to watch. Knox reached into his pocket and counted out 3 crumpled dollar bills, wondering if he had enough to buy Luna a small juice box from the lobby shop. He was calculating survival, penny by penny. Meanwhile, Bianca was scrolling through a digital catalog on her tablet, casually discussing a starting bid of $2 million for an abstract painting she did not even like. $2 million. That amount could feed Knox and Luna for 3 lifetimes. Yet here they were, breathing the same air, separated by a velvet rope and a universe of circumstance. Knox was fighting to stay alive. Bianca was fighting to stay in control. And in this glittering lobby, their worlds were about to collide in a way neither of them could ever predict. Bianca snapped her fingers at her assistant, a nervous young man who was struggling to balance a ring light and 3 different smartphones. "The lighting here is atrocious," Bianca complained, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. She scanned the room with the eye of a predator looking for prey. Her gaze landed on the Italian leather sofa where Knox and Luna were sitting. The light from the crystal chandelier above it was soft, golden, and flattering. It was the perfect backdrop for her pre-auction live stream. But there was a problem. The trash was still there. "I thought I told security to clear the set," Bianca hissed, her eyes narrowing. She watched as Knox wiped a crumb from his daughter's cheek. The tenderness of the gesture meant nothing to her. All she saw was a man in stained overalls ruining her aesthetic. She checked her watch. She was live in 3 minutes. She did not have time to wait for the incompetent guards to circle back. She would handle this herself. Bianca marched across the lobby, her heels clicking like gunshots on the polished marble. She stopped right in front of Knox, blocking the light. "You are still here," she stated, her voice dripping with disdain. "Are you deaf or just stupid?" Knox looked up slowly. His eyes were tired, dark circles shadowing them, but his gaze was steady. "We are just resting, ma'am. My daughter is tired. We will move as soon as she finishes her sandwich." "I do not care about your daughter," Bianca spat. "And do not call me ma'am. I am Bianca Valenti, and I own this building. Well, my father does, which is effectively the same thing." She opened her designer purse, the leather squeaking in the tense silence. She pulled out a clip of cash, crisp $100 bills. She did not hand them to him. Instead, she flicked her wrist and tossed the money into the air. The bills fluttered down like green leaves, landing on Knox's lap, on Luna's small shoes, and on the dirty floor. "There," Bianca sneered. "That is $500. It is probably more than you make in a month. Take it, buy yourself some soap, and get out of my sight. This area is for winners, not for failures who cannot even afford a clean shirt." The lobby went silent. Other guests, dressed in tuxedos and gowns, turned to watch. Some looked away in embarrassment, but no one stepped forward. No one challenged her. Luna looked at the money, then up at her father, her large eyes filled with confusion. "Daddy, why is the lady throwing paper at us?" Knox's jaw tightened. A muscle in his cheek jumped. For a split second, the old soldier in him wanted to react. He wanted to stand up and shout. But he looked at Luna. He needed to teach her something more important than anger. He needed to teach her dignity. Knox exhaled a long, slow breath. He reached down and gathered the bills. He stacked them neatly, aligning the edges with precise military discipline. Bianca smirked, crossing her arms. "I knew it. Everyone has a price." Knox stood up. He was tall, towering over her even in his slumped posture. He held the stack of money out. Bianca reached for it, assuming he was returning it to her hand. But he bypassed her hand completely. He placed the stack of money gently on the glass coffee table beside her expensive handbag. "We do not want your money," Knox said. His voice was low, a deep rumble that carried across the silent room. Bianca looked at the money, then back at him, stunned. "Are you insane? That is $500. "You can keep it," Knox continued, looking her straight in the eye. He picked up his delivery crate with one hand and took Luna's small hand with the other. "You can buy this building," Knox said, his voice calm but cutting deep. "You can buy that seat. You can buy all the expensive clothes in the world." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But money cannot buy class, Miss Valenti, and it certainly cannot buy character. You are the poorest person in this room." He turned his back on her, intending to walk away with his head held high. Ouch! That line hit harder than a truck. Money can buy seats, but not character. Knox just destroyed her ego without raising his voice once. He kept his dignity even when he was being humiliated in front of everyone. But Bianca is not used to being talked back to, especially not by someone she considers beneath her. She is furious. I can see the steam coming out of her ears. Watch closely what happens next. The push that reveals everything. The silence that followed Knox's exit line was short-lived. It hung in the air for a heartbeat, a heavy, suffocating pause, before Bianca's humiliation exploded into pure, unadulterated rage. She was shaking. No one walked away from her. No one spoke down to her. And certainly, no one in dirty work clothes had the right to call her poor. "Did you hear me?" Bianca screamed, her voice cracking, losing all its polished elegance. She spun around to the lead bodyguard, a mountain of a man named Marcus. "I said get him out of here! Throw him into the street where he belongs! I do not want to see his face or that wretched child ever again!" Marcus did not hesitate. He was paid to follow orders, not to have a conscience. He lunged forward, closing the distance between himself and Knox in 2 heavy strides. Knox heard the movement. He turned, his first instinct to shield Luna. He managed to push his daughter behind him, but he was not ready for the sheer force of the shove. Marcus slammed his broad hands into Knox's chest with the impact of a battering ram. Knox lost his footing on the slick marble floor. He fell backward, flailing for balance that wasn't there. His body crashed heavily against the sharp corner of the low glass coffee table, the same table where he had placed the money moments ago. Crash! The sound of impact was sickening. The heavy glass did not shatter, but Knox's arm took the brunt of the blow. He hit the floor hard, groaning in pain. A split second later, a dark crimson pool began to spread on the pristine white marble.
"Daddy!"
Luna screamed, a high-pitched sound of terror that cut through the lobby. She dropped to her knees beside him, her small hands fluttering over his face. Knox gritted his teeth, fighting the wave of nausea. "I am okay, sweetie. I am okay," he wheezed, trying to sit up. He pushed himself up with his right arm. As he did, the sleeve of his heavy work jacket, which had been torn in the scuffle, slid all the way down to his elbow. The injury from the table had opened a fresh cut, but that was not what caught the light. Beneath the fresh blood, there was an old wound. A scar. It was not a surgical line or a clean accident. It was a jagged, raised keloid that ran from the base of his wrist halfway up his forearm. It looked like a bolt of lightning carved into his flesh, angry and permanent. And wrapped directly over the worst part of the scar was a bracelet. It was the most out-of-place object in the entire building. In a room full of diamonds, gold, and platinum, here was a cheap, handmade bracelet woven from 7 different colors of parachute cord. It was old, decades old. The colors were faded to pastel grays and muddy pinks. The fibers were frayed and worn thin from years of friction. It was dirty, cheap, and utterly worthless. Bianca stood over him, her chest heaving, ready to deliver one final insult. She looked down to see the damage she had caused. Her eyes landed on the blood, then the scar, then the bracelet. The world stopped. The noise of the lobby, the whispers of the guests, Luna's crying, the bodyguard's heavy breathing, all of it vanished into a vacuum of silence. Bianca's breath hitched in her throat. She felt a physical blow to her chest, harder than the one the bodyguard had given Knox. Her vision tunneled. She could only see that wrist, the lightning bolt, the 7-colored cord. She knew that scar. She had seen it happen. She knew that bracelet. She had made it with her own hands at a summer camp when she was 10 years old. Flashback. 15 years ago. The smell of mold and gasoline. Darkness. Total, suffocating darkness. A damp basement somewhere on the outskirts of the city. 10-year-old Bianca was huddled in the corner, her expensive dress torn, shivering so hard her teeth rattled. She had been taken from her school. The men had guns. They wanted money. Then, a noise. A window breaking. A boy dropped into the basement. He was not much older than her, maybe 12 or 13. He was the son of the groundskeeper at her school. She didn't even know his name. He had followed the van on his bicycle. "Shh," the boy whispered, crawling toward her. "I am going to get you out." But the door burst open. The kidnapper, a giant man with a mask, lunged at them. He held a rusted hunting knife. He swung it down, aiming for the screaming girl. The boy did not run. He threw his arm up. He threw his own flesh and bone between the knife and Bianca. The blade slashed down. A jagged, lightning-shaped tear ripped through his forearm. Blood sprayed onto Bianca's face. The boy screamed, but he did not move his arm. He held the man back, kicking and fighting, buying time. "Run!" he screamed at her. "Bianca, run!" Sirens wailed outside. The police were coming. The kidnapper fled. The boy collapsed against the wall, clutching his bleeding arm, his face pale as a sheet. Bianca, weeping, had crawled over to him. She didn't know how to stop the bleeding. She took off the only thing she had, a silly, colorful paracord bracelet she had made that morning. "It is lucky," she had sobbed, sliding it over his bloody wrist, right over the wound. "My mom said it is magic. It will protect you. Please don't die. Keep it, and it will keep you safe." End flashback. Bianca blinked, and the memory receded. leaving her standing in the cold, bright lobby of the auction house. She looked at the man on the floor. The dirt on his face masked his features. The years had changed him, hardened him. But the wrist? The wrist told the truth that time could not hide. Knox was not a stranger. He was not a beggar. He was not trash. He was the boy who had bled for her. He was the only reason she was alive to stand here today. And for 15 years, while she slept in silk sheets and forgot about him, he had worn her cheap, childish gift every single day. He had kept it. Through the war, through poverty, through the insults she had just hurled at him. Bianca felt her knees give way. The Hermes bag she was clutching slipped from her numb fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud, spilling lipstick and credit cards everywhere. She didn't care. She stared at Knox, her mouth opening but no sound coming out. The horror of what she had just done crashed over her like a tidal wave. Bianca dropped. She did not bend down gracefully like a lady of high society. She collapsed. Her knees hit the hard marble floor with a painful thud, right into the pool of spilled coffee and the smear of Knox's blood. Her white designer dress soaked up the grime instantly, but she did not flinch. She did not even blink. The guests gasped. The camera flashes popped like fireworks. The Ice Queen was on her knees in the dirt. Her trembling hands reached out, hovering over Knox's arm. She looked like she was afraid he would disappear if she touched him. Her fingers brushed the frayed, faded threads of the rainbow bracelet. "It is you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The boy in the warehouse. The boy who saved me." Knox flinched, instinctively pulling his arm back to hide the ugly scar. He looked at her, confused by the sudden change in her eyes. He did not recognize the polished, cruel woman in front of him as the terrified little girl from 15 years ago. "I am sorry about the blood on your floor, miss," Knox said, his voice rough with pain. "We are leaving. Come on, Luna." "No!" Bianca cried out, grabbing his wrist with a desperate strength. "Do not go, please. Look at this." She traced the lightning-shaped scar with her thumb, ignoring the fresh blood from his fall. Tears began to spill from her eyes, ruining her perfect makeup, leaving black streaks down her cheeks. "You kept it," she sobbed, looking at the cheap paracord bracelet. "Why? Why would you keep this piece of trash? It has been 15 years. You have lived a whole life. Why?" Knox stopped. He looked at the bracelet, then at the weeping woman. The recognition finally dawned in his tired eyes. He saw past the diamonds and the cruelty. He saw the scared little girl he had shielded in the dark. He smiled, a sad, gentle smile that broke Bianca's heart. "It is not trash to me," Knox said softly. "I was a soldier, Miss Valenti. I fought in places where hope did not exist. I lost friends. I lost my way. But every time I looked at this bracelet, I remembered that I saved a life once. I remembered that there was still something good in me." He touched the frayed knot. "It was my lucky charm. It brought me home from the war. It brought me back to my daughter. It is the most valuable thing I own." Bianca let out a wretched, guttural sob. She bowed her head until it touched Knox's dirty boot. "I have spent my whole life looking for you," she wept, her voice breaking. "I wanted to find my hero. I wanted to thank him. And when I finally found you, I treated you like an animal. I pushed you. I humiliated you." She looked up, her eyes wide with horror. "I became the monster. I became just like the men who took me." Suddenly, a shadow loomed over them. Marcus, the bodyguard, stepped forward. He misunderstood the situation completely. He thought Knox was hurting her. "Get away from her!" Marcus roared. He reached down to grab Knox by the collar again. "Ms. Valenti, get up. You are ruining your dress on this filth." Smack! The sound echoed through the entire lobby like a gunshot. Bianca had surged upward. With all the force in her body, she slapped Marcus across the face. The blow was so hard it knocked the earpiece out of his ear. "Do not touch him!" Bianca screamed, her voice feral. She stood between Marcus and Knox, looking like a lioness protecting her cub. If you ever lay a hand on him again, I will destroy you. You are fired. Get out of my sight. Get out!" Marcus stumbled back, shocked. The entire room was frozen. Bianca turned back to Knox. She did not call for an assistant. She did not call for help. She bent down, grabbed Knox's uninjured arm, and used her own strength to help him stand up. She did not care that his blood was staining her hands. She did not care that the world was watching. She looked at him, stripped of all her arrogance, leaving only raw, naked gratitude. "I am so sorry," she whispered, holding his hands in hers. "Please, let me fix this." Bianca wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing the expensive foundation. But she looked more beautiful in that moment than she ever had in the glossy magazines. She turned to face the silent crowd of millionaires, influencers, and socialites. She snatched a microphone from the nearby podium, the feedback screeching through the room. "Listen to me," Bianca commanded, her voice ringing with a new kind of power. Not the power of money, but the power of truth. "Tonight was supposed to be about bidding on art. We came here to put a price on beauty. But I was blind. I walked right past the most valuable thing in this room." She gestured to Knox, who was standing beside her, holding his daughter close. "You all saw a delivery man," Bianca said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I saw a nuisance, but this man is a hero. 15 years ago, he took a knife for a stranger. He saved my life in a dark basement when I had no one. He bled for me." She looked at the guests, meeting their gazes one by one. "We judge people by their shoes, by their clothes, by the size of their wallets. But look at this bracelet." She held up Knox's wrist, displaying the cheap, frayed cord for everyone to see. "This is what loyalty looks like. This is what honor looks like. And it is worth more than every diamond in this room combined." Bianca dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a thud. "The auction is cancelled," she announced to her shocked assistants. "Send everyone home. I have a dinner to attend." She turned to Knox and knelt down until she was eye level with little Luna. She smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. "Hi, Luna," Bianca said softly. "I am sorry I was mean before. I was very foolish. Would you like to go get the biggest, most expensive ice cream sundae in the entire city? My treat." Luna's eyes went wide. "With sprinkles?" "With gold sprinkles if you want them," Bianca laughed through her tears. She stood up and took Knox's uninjured arm. Together, the billionaire heiress and the delivery man walked out of the golden doors, leaving the stunned crowd behind them. They walked out into the cool night air, not as strangers, but as a family reunited by fate. That night, over dinner at the finest restaurant in the city, where Knox sat proudly in his work clothes, Bianca made a promise. Knox would never have to carry heavy crates again. He would have the best medical care for his arm. And Luna? Luna would have the best education money could buy. The scar on Knox's arm would never fade. It would always be there, a jagged white line. But now, it was no longer a mark of pain. It was a bridge that connected two worlds, proving that sometimes, the person you look down on is the only one strong enough to pick you up when you fall. I have actual chills running all over my body right now. Can you believe he kept that bracelet for 15 years? That is the definition of loyalty. Bianca learned a painful lesson today, but thank goodness she realized the truth before it was too late. It just goes to show, you never know who you are talking to. The person you ignore today could be the hero who saved you yesterday. Would you recognize your childhood savior if you saw them on the street? Let me know in the comments. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more emotional stories. See you next time.